evening, everyone. Welcome to another presentation from the City of Huntington Woods. We have Abby with us tonight from the Clinton River Watershed Council, and she's going to be talking about DIY landscaping and lawn care practices for water quality.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. It's great to see all of you. And I thank you even more for coming here and spending the evening indoors on this beautiful sunny evening. So yeah, I'm going to talk about do-it-yourself landscaping and lawn care. I'm from the Clinton River Watershed Council, so everything we always talk about takes the spin of water quality. So how can we do our landscaping and lawn care to help protect water quality? Just a little bit about the Clinton River Watershed Council. Our mission is to protect, enhance, and celebrate the Clinton River, its watershed, and Lake St. Clair. We are actually in the Clinton River Watershed here in Huntington Woods. We're part of the Red Run subwatershed. But the whole watershed is about 760 square miles. So we're talking about a very large area of land that we do our programs and services in. Our organization, we include membership, so that includes individuals, municipal memberships. We also receive donations from community organizations, and we are also funded through grants. So we have federal grants, state grants, and private grants from foundations and things. We currently actually have 6 staff working in 3 program areas, and those would be education, stewardship, and watershed management. These are just some photos of our different programs. We do a lot of paddling and recreation, both on the lake and on the river, the lake being Lake St. Clair. Cleanups and different educational programs like our Stream Leaders program down in the bottom left with K through 12 students. And we also have other monitoring programs with adults on all the different rivers and streams in our watershed. Quickly, what is a watershed? Does everyone know what a watershed is? So a watershed is basically an area of land where all of the water that falls on that area of land drains to. So in our instance, we're in the Clinton River Watershed. So all of the water that falls on this land will drain into the Clinton River. So a watershed, the area is actually defined by what we call a topographic divide, which is just an area of high elevation. So on that picture on the left, that red line would be that high elevation ridge. And so all the water that falls within that will drain to the lowest point. So for us, that's the Clinton River. Wherever you are in the world, you're always in a watershed, so we could actually locate ourselves or sort of identify ourselves, just like how we do with our address, but by our watershed. So here's a map of Michigan with all of the different watersheds in Michigan. The Clinton River Watershed is right down in southeast Michigan. It's one of the smaller watersheds, but it's actually the most populated watershed in the state of Michigan. So there's our watershed there. And these white areas along the coast, those are going to be direct drainage into the different Great Lakes. So those would be like the Huron, Lake Huron watershed, Lake Michigan watershed, things like that. Excuse me. So our watershed, here's a map of it. It's really tiny, I apologize. I always forget that this screen sort of shrinks things. So our watershed, we cover 4 counties. We cover a small portion of Lapeer, a small portion of St. Clair, about a third of Oakland County, and about half of Macomb County. Like I said, we're 760 square miles large. We have 63 different communities within the watershed and 1.5 million people, which makes us the most populated watershed in the state of Michigan. And that puts us at a very special place in terms of protecting water quality, because with the largest population, we're going to have a pretty large impact on our water resources here. So when we're talking about the health or the effects, what issues affect the health of our water, we ask who's responsible? You know, who's responsible for these things that are affecting our water negatively? Is it industry? Is it individuals? The answer is it's both, really. So when we're talking about pollution from industry, I'm kind of giving an overview of these issues we have in our watershed, and then we'll go into the lawn care and landscaping stuff. So point source pollution is an issue that we've had throughout the years, especially before the Clean Water Act. This was when pollution was just being dumped into our river by industry usually. And we don't really have this problem anymore, but it's a historical issue that has sort of continued to persist, or the effects of it have continued to persist in our watershed. Non-point source pollution, however, is something that we deal with here on a daily basis. We also call it stormwater runoff, which, how many of you have heard of stormwater runoff or stormwater pollution? Great. So we are the most populated watershed in the state of Michigan, which means that we have a lot of impervious surface. Our roads, our rooftops, sidewalks, all of that. And these impervious surfaces create places where water can't absorb. And so this stormwater runs off into our river, into our storm drains, and into rivers and streams, carrying with it suds from washing our car, trash or litter that we've left behind, motor oil, and different products we use on our lawns, things like that. We all know about the Clean Water Act, right? Yes. So the Clean Water Act was established in 1972. This really helped to stop the point source pollution and increased accountability for polluters. But we still have a lot of these issues that are persisting, including stormwater pollution. So we all know what stormwater pollution is. Goes down the storm drains, travels through our pipe systems and out to our rivers and streams, where it collects and affects water quality, unless you are on a combined system, in which case it goes to a water treatment plant. I believe Huntington Woods might be on it. Yep. So when you guys get a high rain event, all of that water that's not being absorbed actually gets sent to your water treatment plant, and that's when we can get things like backing up from the treatment plant in your basement, or up back through the sewers into the streets as well, which you guys have experienced some flooding here. Yes. So that's a stormwater problem because there's so much pavement in this area. So why is it a problem? It's obviously carrying all this crap that's left behind by people on these surfaces, getting into our rivers and streams and causing things like algae to grow if we have excess fertilizer getting into our water, or if we have sediments from lawns or construction sites that aren't being maintained properly, that gets into the water and creates general bad things for our environment and our water quality. So, any questions? Okay. So we can do our part to prevent pollution at the source by following a few simple steps in the garden and on the lawn at home. So I have brought this little guide. Unfortunately, I did not bring enough. I didn't anticipate this many people to be here. So it is available on our website. So for those of you who did not get one tonight, you can check it out on our website. It's available in a downloadable form. But this is just a really cool guide. I'm going to kind of go through it briefly, some of the main points. And it really highlights the benefits of using native plants and just some different landscaping techniques to use when you're thinking about protecting water quality. So first, when we are talking about water quality and protecting it on our property, we want to think about how we can collect and treat this stormwater runoff from leaving our property, right? So one really great way to do this is by installing a rain garden. Who's heard of rain gardens before? Awesome. Who has a rain garden? Anybody? No? Okay. So for those of you who have not heard of a rain garden, they have been around for a while, I think, but maybe not always called rain gardens. But it's basically a vegetated basin that is designed specifically to harness your rainwater, treat and filter the rainwater, and actually infiltrate it, so draw it down into the ground so it doesn't run off of your property. So the size and depth can vary depending on the size of your lot, depending on the size of the area that water would be running off. Did you have a question?
Yeah, well, it's depressed, is that the idea?
Yes.
From the,
Yep.
rather than a raised?
Yes.
Okay.
There's some earth moving involved when you're installing a rain garden. Typically you might need to rent some equipment or get some neighbors together and dig, because you're going to want to create a low area. This is a great thing to plant in a ditch if you can, or along like your driveway or something like that where water might be flowing off of. And you also typically will augment the soil that you've dug out with compost, sand, gravel, things that will help water to pass
It has
through.
to end up lower.
Yes. Yep, it must be lower. You can also build one near where a downspout would be coming off your house, so you can direct the water from your gutters to a rain garden, something like that too. But most importantly, or maybe not most importantly, but one of the most important things in a rain garden is to use native plants, Michigan native plants. And the reason for that is because our native plants are designed to and have adapted to our environment here, our level of water that we get, our soils, everything. And they are designed to have these deep roots that will help to really pull that water down into the ground better than any other non-native could. Did I see a question? Yeah.
How does that work when you have clay? Can it get
Oh, yeah.
below the clay?
It cannot. You have to dig through the clay. Yeah, you're going to have, that's why it takes some, you might have to rent some equipment. There are contractors who actually do this. And if you have clay, planting a rain garden might not be the best way to harness and filter your rainwater, and I'll talk about some other ways to do that if digging through the clay is going to be too much of a job. But yeah, water will not filter through clay very easily, as you probably already see in your lawn, maybe if it puddles or things like that. So. If you live on a stream, which nobody here in Huntington Woods does, but,
No,
right?
Not true.
Oh, really? Do you?
Well, it's underneath, but it's there.
Right, but you don't have any exposed waterway, correct?
Well, it only depends on how much water.
Only when it rains, right? I'm assuming it's been put in a pipe, correct? Like a drain underground?
No.
No, if you dig, you'll find water running.
Really?
Oh, yeah, but you go down like, you
Oh,
go 5, 6
okay.
feet, you'll find water running.
Well, there you go. I didn't know that. Thank you for teaching me something new today.
One area that's
The west side.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is more for exposed waterways. And what this is a riparian buffer is what we call it. So it's just planting a strip of vegetation along either side of an exposed waterway to just prevent runoff from entering that stream. But for water underground, planting native plants is a great way to make sure that surface water or rainwater can make it down into the ground, because it actually travels down the roots. The plant will actually pull it down into the ground with its roots. So this is just kind of a diagram of what I've been talking about with the native plants versus non-native. You can see on the left side, this is root depth in feet. It's really hard to read, but this right here is about 3. Can you guys see my laser pointer? No? Okay. I'm putting it up here. So this is about 3 feet deep. And so this is that like turf grass that we see on most lawns. And it's probably 4 inches, 3 to 4 inches deep, the roots are. So in terms of absorbing water, grass really doesn't do that great of a job, especially when we have a lot of rain. Moving to these other grasses, they really only get to about 3 feet maximum. But if you start looking at these Michigan natives, this is almost a 16-foot root depth, full grown. This is common 9-bark, really common 9-bark. A black-eyed Susan has about a 7-foot root depth, fully mature. Prairie dropseed is another type of grass. gets to about 8 feet. And buffalo grass, which is kind of a similar, you could plant it in your lawn, I believe, goes down to about 8 feet as well. So this is kind of what we're talking about when we're thinking about native plants and how they've adapted to really survive and work cooperatively with our environment here. They're really going to do a great job at pulling the water down into the ground. And in those guides that I brought, there's a list of plants in there too, I think in the back as a reference. So. Along with pulling water into the ground, the vegetation can actually help to cushion rainfall, so it helps to lessen erosion in areas. And then the deep roots, not only do they pull the water down, but they also help to stabilize soil. So if you're on a sloped bank, which probably doesn't happen much around here either, but it can help to really stabilize the ground as well and prevent the movement of soil into the water. There's a lot of words on this slide, but basically what it's showing is on a half-acre property here in Michigan, we receive roughly 13,000 gallons of water in a 1-inch rainstorm. So a half-acre property, that's probably a little larger than lots here, right? Probably it's like a 1/4 acre here maybe or so.
Most of
What's
them are
that?
small, but
Most of them are smaller? Okay. But still, it's a ton of gallons of water in a 1-inch rainstorm. So if we think about ways we can increase our vegetation to help capture any of that water we possibly can in a completely vegetated area, there's only about 10% runoff. So we're talking tree canopy, grass, some of it's evaporating and some of it's infiltrating into the ground. There's only about 10% runoff. But in a more urbanized area, that same size plot of land, if we have houses and rooftops and things like that, we're getting about 55, so a little more than half of the runoff is leaving the property. So plants and vegetation are going to be the best bet for capturing that stormwater runoff to help protect water quality. Any questions so far? Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
2 slides ago, or 1 slide ago.
This one?
You had different grasses you
Yeah.
showed that are good for, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of those suitable for a park as grass? You know, like where kids play ball or soccer? Turf, yeah, turf, thanks.
So
can you walk on?
yes, I would think so. There's a lot of different varieties of grass. Turf grass, I'm not really sure why we plant it. For an athletic field, there
We
might,
have a park project that's.
yeah.
And there were some concerns about, it's a very wet area, that park.
Okay.
And a plan was designed, which I don't quite understand, which would use the same kind of grass that's there, which is gonna get compacted and requires mowing and requires watering.
Right.
Requires a lot of maintenance. And, I went to all the meetings on that project, and they want to put a sprinkling system in, but they want to drain it. So, I don't quite understand how that would work. And if there are other kinds of grasses
Yeah.
that don't require, that doesn't require mowing and takes the water away from the
Yeah.
surface, I would think that would be a preferable solution than putting in an irrigation system.
Yeah.
You want to take
For
water
sure.
out. I don't
Absolutely.
understand the concept.
I know that there are many varieties of grass. Probably a better choice than turf grass would be, for sure, no doubt. In terms of the mowing, though, depending on what the field will be used for, I know athletic fields need to be mowed short.
Well, it's
Just
for
a
a
park.
public use, it's a park, so
Okay.
people go there and listen to concerts.
Yeah.
People go there and have, sit on the grass with a blanket,
Right.
kids play there.
Right.
And there's no equipment, but it's a nice open area.
It's not an athletic field.
It's not
Okay.
an athletic field, it's a public park, kind of.
I would
Yeah.
definitely look into the buffalo grass. I would think also if there's flooding happening, if there's maybe a way to put some rain gardens along the
Well, I think
perimeter.
that's part of the plan.
Oh, great.
I was just thought it
'Cause
was
those-
very odd that if you wanted to drain
Yeah.
a large area, why would you plant grass that needs to be irrigated?
Well, as soon as you get deeper
Sprinkler
roots,
system.
you won't need to water as much because they'll be able to store more water in the ground. So automatically by choosing a grass that has a more
Step-
defined root system, you're gonna start to help with those problems.
So where do you get buffalo grass?
That's a great question. There's a lot of Michigan native plant nurseries. I'm assuming you could probably get the seed.
Just curious.
Yeah, I think Wild Type is
Wild Type.
one that I know of. There's Michigan native plant. I can't remember the name of it, but in that guide, there's some resources on the back, I believe, of nurseries.
Wild Type is a wonderful place, and they have, up near Lansing, it's near Okemos.
Mhm.
Just Google Wild Type, and they have milkweed, they have culver root, they have all kinds of stuff
Mhm.
there, and they're very smart people. And, yeah,
But jump on that right away because he has
Ret-
very limited retail hours.
Right, May.
He does a lot of consulting around the state. So if you're interested in going to see the nursery, I think the dates are, maybe he's open every weekend in May.
right,
But look it up right away.
yeah,
And he'd be a good consultant for the park.
totally, but
And is the-
He would
it's
be, yeah.
wild?
Wild Type.
Yeah.
It's a
I know
great-
we just planted a rain garden at our office and we used them
Do
to
you
source
use
well.
them?
Yep, we
He's
used them
excellent.
to get all of our natives, yeah.
Do you know anything about moss as a cover? Because I just bought a little bit, and I have some that's growing by itself.
Yeah,
And it's, I think, this is Irish moss that I
Okay.
bought. I don't know if you can buy the wild stuff, but it's green and it doesn't get tall. This one that I bought said you can walk on it.
I know
But I
moss
don't know how the
doesn't-
roots are.
I was gonna say,
They're very
my
shallow.
interaction
They're
with,
shallow.
I was gonna say they're super shallow, cause I know
Oh.
you can really like just do
Well,
this on
that's
moss.
true,
and-
on the stuff that's.
Yeah, but it's really nice on your feet. Yeah,
What, clover used to be
Oh,
the preferred lawn. I remember these beautiful estates when I was
Yeah.
a little kid, and
Is
the
that
lawns were
would be nice
all
if it came
clover.
back. If it
And
wants
they
to.
choke out weeds, and they don't require water. So is it like, why don't we see?
I mean, that sounds like a great
clover?
idea to me. People don't always like the way a clover looks, cause it's
Well,
not
there's that
grass, but.
short- There's that very short compact clover, not the tall.
Right. Yeah, the clover you see in your lawn kind of popping up in places, correct?
I can,
Yes,
I need
yeah.
to be, I'm not an expert on lawns, but my sister plants clover, and it's not estates, it's what grass used to have, all
Clover.
seeds, all had
Oh.
clover growing up.
Yeah.
And there's a guy on 12 Mile, what's the name of that place that sells, what's the name of that place, Scott?
Garden Central?
Yeah, he sells it, it's kind of expensive, but you can buy clover seeds there.
Garden Central.
You can
Garden
get-
Central,
it's cool.
and I'm gonna
I love
plan on
clover.
buying some, it's just talking in my mind.
So I hope everyone's taking notes right now, because that was a great little discussion. All right, thank you for the questions, good questions.
We should share each other's email addresses.
Yeah, no kidding.
And have.
Well, if you guys wrote them down here and
Yeah.
copy this page or something.
Yeah.
On the garden.
By increasing vegetation on your lawn, you're reducing runoff, and in this area, that means you'd be reducing the flood, or the potential for flooding as well, which is huge. Vegetation does a lot of amazing things. All of this we call green infrastructure. Who's heard of green infrastructure? Sweet. Green infrastructure is basically taking the idea of infrastructure, which is something that's serving a purpose to bring you a service in your community, but calling it green infrastructure, so using living plants and things to harness rainwater or filter the air or cool the temperature. So when we're talking about a rain garden, we call this green infrastructure because it's doing all of those things, but it's green, right? It's infrastructure, but it's green, it's living. So not only does this type of infrastructure protect water quality and quantity, it also helps to filter the air. It protects, or it creates habitat for wildlife. It promotes wildlife in the area. And the more green space you have in your community, the more your community feels taken care of, and it encourages recreation, all of those things. So it's a great thing to incorporate. Actually, Huntington Woods is doing a great job of really pushing for green infrastructure here. So good job, all of you. And all of our communities in our watershed, you guys are really doing a good job. Trying to push it, at least. Trust me, it's an uphill battle sometimes. People don't really see the benefits of this. They see it as just maintenance and more work, but really in the long term, it's relieving you of the maintenance and all of those things. So we've talked a lot about native plants and kind of landscaping projects you could do. We'll go into the healthy lawn care part now. So using healthy lawn care practices is one step closer to cleaner rivers and lakes. So this will be talking about specifically the lawn. So when we talk about lawn care for watershed quality, we always talk about the 10 tips. So I'll just go through each of these one by one, and I printed this out for everyone to take home. So if you want to take notes on that, it's fine too. So the first one is sweep it. So how many folks fertilize their lawns here? Anyone? A few people? So it's not a problem at all to fertilize. It just means you need to do it responsibly. So when you fertilize, if the fertilizer gets on the cement, we want to make sure we're sweeping it back onto our lawn, right? Because if it's on the cement and it rains, it's not going to be absorbed. It'll go into our storm drains. If it's on the lawn will do a much better job of absorbing that fertilizer. So sweep it. The next tip is mow high. So a lot of people like a real nice short cut lawn. It looks nice and crisp. But we recommend a lawn height of 3 inches or taller on your lawn. What this does is it promotes the grass to have a more healthy blade. It actually allows it to establish a deeper root when it's allowed to grow a bit longer. Once it reaches this length, it actually starts to slow down in growth, so you don't need to trim it as much. So it's less maintenance for you, which means that it's less stressed. It's not being cut so often. Again, we'll promote a healthier blade of grass. Because it's growing more and establishing a deeper root, it will actually be able to store more water, which means that you'll need to water your lawn less as well. It will need less fertilizer because it's healthier. It will shade out weeds. So when you allow it to get a little longer, it'll kind of block out any other weeds that might be coming in. And because of all these things, it will have fewer insect problems just because it's generally a healthier blade of grass. And then going along with mowing, make sure your lawnmower is always sharp. So a sharp mower blade will make a clean cut on a blade of grass. If you have a dull blade, it can actually, if you were to look at a blade of grass that's been cut with a dull blade under a microscope, you'd see a lot of small tears. And that actually is like prime real estate for infection on that grass. It can actually become a really unhealthy blade of grass if it's not cut sharply. Same thing with like a cut on your skin. If you get cut with, you know, something really sharp, it's much easier to I just got a heal. I got one on my finger the other day actually, and it's fine now. Little antidote, sorry. Yep, so dull lawnmower blade is not good for your grass. So just make sure you're keeping up with maintenance on the sharpness of the blade. Aerating your lawn is important. It promotes healthy roots, and it decreases thatching in the lawn as well.
How often do you recommend?
Does anyone aerate their lawn here? Yeah, do you know, how often do you aerate your lawn?
The spring
Golf
and
courses
fall.
Spring
aerate
and fall?
three times a year.
Yeah. Golf courses are a little more, if you think about it, so golf courses mow their lawns really short too, so they probably need to do more maintenance like that. So, yeah.
How long, when you're talking about keeping the lawn longer or whatever, to
Yeah.
enable growth, how long are you talking about?
3 inches or more. That,
Up to, I mean, you said 3 inches more. So.
well, the longer the blade of grass, the healthier it's going to be, but usually
No,
there's,
I mean height-wise, because I know there are certain rules that were passed here.
Oh.
That have to do with how long you can let your lawn.
yeah, I actually don't know the answer to that.
6 inches?
6
City
inches?
ordinance is 6 inches, Kathy.
So not,
Kathy, the city ordinance is 6 inches. You're not gonna want your lawn to be that much higher anyway.
Yeah.
I've always told people, figure 3 to 4 inches
Yeah.
is a good mark.
Yeah. And it's softer on your feet too, I feel like. So 2 to 3 times, maybe twice a year, spring and fall for the
You
time.
need to do both?
What's that?
Once a year isn't enough?
I would, probably once a year is okay, but she said twice, so I was figuring maybe. Sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I was kind of looking if other people would do it, so.
Abby, the other thing, when you cut your lawn, and if you cut it high and let it lie, that does not make thatch.
No.
The grass that you cut and let fall to your lawn actually turns into compost. It disintegrates and feeds your lawn.
If it's not a big mound of it.
That's just something totally different, and so people say, well, I don't want to let the clips fall because it's that. It's not.
Mhm.
It actually helps your lawn.
Yep. Leave short clippings on your lawn.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's good. You segued perfectly into that next slide. Yeah, it's a great fertilizer, natural fertilizer for your lawn.
Yeah, but when my guy does it, there's like whole pieces that block the light and it gets.
You can kind of rake it out if you
Yeah.
wanted to. Spread it out with a rake, kind of like how you might rake leaves, something like that. That would help with that. But if you have huge clumps of, grass, you can put it. Does anybody compost in here? You can put it in your compost pile too and save it for, when you're planting a garden or something like that.
Or you
But
can put it at the curb for the city and it gets composted and comes back to the city as compost.
there you go.
In
That's
bags
awesome.
or in containers.
That's cool. So yeah, great nutrients that shouldn't go to waste. This goes to kind of the topic we were touching on earlier, select your grass varieties wisely. Popular bluegrass species, so Kentucky bluegrass, rough bluegrass, I think it's supina bluegrass, and perennial ryegrass. They have a low tolerance for shade, drought, and heat. But fescues, creeping red, chewings, hard and tall, these are different varieties, are much more tolerant of shade, drought, and heat. So here in Michigan, we have heavy rain, then we get dry periods. So some of these more resilient types of grasses might be a better choice for a lawn, something like that. Water wisely. So homes in Michigan need about 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches of water per week. Obviously that changes if it's just rained or things like that. Overwatering causes more damage. You can start to rot your grass or create soggy spots. And it can actually be worse than forgetting to water once or something. Most grasses here can stand about 4 to 6 weeks, can withstand dormancy for 4 to 6 weeks. And then obviously don't have the sprinkler on if it's just rained or things like that. It's very self-explanatory. But when you are watering, make sure to water during times of day when evaporation isn't going to be occurring. So right in the middle of the day when it's the hottest, don't water because a lot of that will just evaporate. So watering in the morning or in the evening is a good time to water your lawn.
thought evening wasn't good because it,
It's a void water.
because of,
Oh, yeah. So morning is the best time, probably. Yeah. Yeah. You just don't want to. You don't want to be watering at a time where the water is going to be evaporating off of your lawn. And then,
Question.
yeah.
Go back. The last bullet seems contradictory with the two sentences. Which do you do, deep watering or like frequent watering?
I think it's not saying one or the other is bad. I think it's just,
You alternate or?
yeah, I think maybe if you have a sprinkler system that waters frequently, you could do that. Or if you'd rather just go and water like a long period of time on your lawn and then not have the sprinkler on. You know what I mean? Sort of.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think it's saying one or the other is bad. I think it's just depending on what you're looking for. Don't water the cement. It's amazing how many businesses probably need to read this over and over, and I get so frustrated when I see puddles of water from sprinklers on a parking lot. It's just like a total waste. Fertilizing, so if you are fertilizing, get a soil test of your lawn. MSU Extension provides a test kit that you can use on your own. And what this will do is just tell you exactly what nutrients your lawn needs, so you're not playing the guessing game when you're buying your fertilizer. And you can make sure that you're giving it exactly what it needs, and that way all of it's being absorbed and there's no excess being left on your lawn. The Watershed Council, excuse me, we provide these stickers, earth-friendly fertilizer stickers, to local hardware stores and home and garden stores that will be supplying fertilizer. And what it does is we give them a list of excuse me, qualified fertilizers that are the buy low or buy slow, so low or no phosphorus and slow release nitrogen. And they can label the fertilizers in their store that fall under this category, so it makes it really easy for consumers to make a good choice on what fertilizer is good for their lawn. And the reason why we want to buy low and buy slow is that both phosphorus and nitrogen are nutrients that when they get in the water, they promote excessive plant growth, just like how they do on your lawn. But in the water, excessive plant growth can create algal blooms, which can block out sunlight in the water from the plants that are actually growing in the water and creating oxygen, which creates a whole lot of bad conditions for life in the stream. So we want to make sure that we're keeping as much of these nutrients out of our waterways as possible.
So I'm sorry, what did you say about a list of approved fertilizers?
Yeah.
Do you have one?
It's the Michigan, yes, we do. It's MGIA is the acronym, I believe. Or, yeah.
I think if you go to the SOCWA, not SOCRO, but the SOCWA website, that there's a list on there. It's been a long time since I've looked, but there should be.
So it's SOC.
SOCWA, it's the Water Authority.
Are services have any requirements to use?
Yes. Yep. So the that list of fertilizers is I feel really bad I can't remember the acronym. I think actually might be this here, the MGIA Healthy Lawn Care Program for Watershed Protection. Can everyone see this
No.
picture on the bottom? Let's see.
That little yellow sticker?
Just this, the Healthy Lawn Care Program for Watershed Protection. The groups is the Michigan, I can't remember what, it's MGIA. But they have a whole list of fertilizers and also lawn care providers that have certified to use this whole list of standards when taking care of a lawn. And they update that annually. So we have, it's posted on our website. the list of lawn care providers. You can also go to their website and find a lot more information
But
on
there's
this
no
as well.
regulations that they all lie
There is a phosphorus. We are no longer allowed to have,
in Michigan,
what's that?
in all of Michigan or just this area?
I'm not sure if it's all of Michigan, but I do know that this area definitely, we have these regulations on our fertilizers. So most fertilizers that you can buy now are gonna have that regulated level of phosphorus because it's been identified as such a problem with water quality. So,
And it's the Michigan Green Industry Association.
yes, thank you. I knew it was Michigan something Association. I kept wanting to say green infrastructure, but that's not what it was, so.
Industry, what? Industry?
Michigan Green Industry Association, MGIA.
But check out the SOCWA website.
Okay.
They also have a lot of information on healthy lawn and garden on that site.
And actually, I'm pretty sure this MGIA, you can go to their website, www.landscape.org, and that will give you all of the landscape providers there available to hire. How many applications does a typical lawn need? We say once or twice a year. And fertilizing in the fall is the most ideal because it actually encourages the most root growth. So fertilizing in the spring would be more leafy growth, but the root growth is really what's going to get you that super healthy lawn in the spring if you fertilize in the fall. Yeah.
Weed killer. What's the word on that?
Killer.
Yeah, I say weed killer. We don't promote using weed killer because we like native plants, weeds. The more diverse, excuse me, the more diverse the lawn, the better it is for habitat for things. There are different, and we'd say go natural if you're going to do that. So I would look up some maybe DIY recipes for weed killer. Does anyone know of any sort of natural ways to deal with weeds? Pulling them out of the ground.
I mean, for
Yeah,
dandelions,
plucking
you can
them.
do them by hand
Yeah.
without,
Well, and
with a
actually, the thing to
tool.
remember about dandelions is they're one of the very first flowers that come out for pollinators.
Right.
So they're actually a very beneficial weed. Even though the little fluffies are kind of annoying when they're done flowering, but one thing to kind of, I don't know, maybe look at it in a different light is that they are really good food for bees, which are in need of support right now. So, yeah.
I get the feeling I hope people are changing a little bit their attitude about dandelions. Because people are becoming aware that bees desperately need their help.
Yeah.
And so I've been pulling dandelions, but I stopped. And then I'll pull them after they've seeded.
Yeah.
Or
Give
pull
the
the
little
head
fluffy
off.
heads, yeah.
But there are some solutions, there's salt and Epsom salt and vinegar and.
There's a specific vinegar that you have to use. It's not, the vinegar from your kitchen isn't gonna do it.
Is that right?
It's a much stronger vinegar, and you have to use gloves when you're handling it.
Wow.
But your kitchen vinegar is not gonna do it.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Vinegar.
What kind of vinegar?
It's a much stronger percentage, yeah, I was reading up on it the other day. If you Google recipes
Okay.
for natural water, there was an article on the kind of vinegar that you
There's,
have.
yeah, I
And it's a
will.
much stronger,
Yeah.
it's like an industrial strength vinegar.
Boiling hot water. It has worked for me for years.
That's good for
Yeah, that's true.
isolated things, that's good for isolated things.
Yeah.
It's really an attitude change that you gotta go for.
Yeah.
Maybe teaching kids to make dandelion crowns and inviting them over to your house.
Yeah. So it's, there's different options, but when we're talking about water quality, any type of pesticide or herbicide is going to be bad, really bad for water quality, really, if it gets in the runoff. Yeah.
Ties back into your previous thing is most of the weeds come from compacted soil, so regularly irrigating your soil promotes the grass growth, which inhibits some of the weed growth.
There you go.
By
Full circle.
By aerating? Ah. Oh, yeah.
So promoting healthy lawn will help to diminish your weed problem. Yeah. Weeds are opportunistic, so for sure. We talked a little bit about shoreline buffers. Just making sure you're keeping any area that's along a waterway vegetated, because that's doing its part to help prevent any runoff from entering that waterway. Talked a lot about going native and natural, so native plants, natural fertilizers, so composting. It's great to hear some of you compost. Both of those things will help to keep the ground healthy, which helps to keep the water healthy, and promotes native animals too, visiting your property, which is always nice. And then how many folks have a rain barrel here? Anybody? A few people? We actually were just selling them at the Royal Oak Farmers Market on Earth Day. Did anyone go out to that event? No? Okay. Well, rain barrels are a really cool, super simple tool to use to harvest your rainwater and to save it for a later date. So what you do is you hook it up to your downspout, and it collects the runoff from your roof. And so then maybe on a dry day, instead of using your hose, you can actually hook up a hose to a rain barrel and use the rainwater to water your lawn or your garden, things like that.
This is a stupid question, but I always think, doesn't it go bad? I mean, does it go like moldy or?
It's water.
I don't know.
Just water.
I told you, I don't know.
No, it's a great question.
Yeah. After like 2 months, does it get like rancid or what?
You wouldn't drink it. You would never drink it because it's coming off your roof. And but if you're just putting it on your lawn or your garden, they're just plants.
If you want to see a rain barrel kind of up close and personal, there's one on the back of DPW. We put one there. Our biggest problem is that when it doesn't rain, they use that water to water the 2 planters right by the mailboxes.
Yeah.
And we put it for that, but every now and again we have to go add water to it because if we have a spate of no rain, we don't have any water in the rain barrel.
Right.
But it's been great as a source of water to water those plants. But if you have a rain barrel, you're going to use the water, and water can sit forever. And as long as you have a screen, if you use your water, it's not going to attract mosquitoes. It's not going to be a breeding ground for mosquitoes. If you go away for any length of time, you may want to put a very thin mesh on the top so that the mosquito larvae can't form.
Is Huntington Woods going to have any more rain barrel workshops?
You have to ask the BART for it. They're very easy to put on. I made Josh too well known. The person who's doing all these rain barrel sales.
Yeah, he just helped us.
Did his first one in Huntington Woods, and nobody knew about him. And when I tried to set one up this spring before I retired, I kept not being able to get a hold of him.
Okay.
I was furious at it. And they said, I made you too popular.
Yeah.
So they're very easy. Actually, I would urge the city to do one in the fall. They're very easy to put on because the wonderful thing about Josh is he comes, he handles all the money, he
does it
handles
all.
everything. I've done sales where I had to do 90% of the work, but Josh does everything.
Yeah.
Basically, I used to open up the yard. We used to do it inside in case it rained or was boiling hot. But he comes, he does the whole thing from beginning to end. They take care of the money, they do it all.
Yep.
And he's wonderful to work with.
Yeah, he was really
He's great.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, for those people who have theirs set up, I have one, I haven't set it up yet.
Oh.
What do you do with it in the wintertime? With, you know?
It's a good
Empty
point.
the wire out, turn it over, so no more water goes in.
Okay, so I have to have somebody to do that then,
I
tip it
haven't-
over or?
I haven't turned mine over. I
No?
just let the water run
Just
out
open it.
at the end of the season and
Leave it open.
close
And
it up
then-
at the beginning.
And then whatever's coming down your downspout, where does that go then? In the winter?
Leave the spout open.
Yeah, you leave the
There's a
spout open.
usually on the bottom
Yeah.
of the rain barrel.
Yeah,
Just leave it open.
Leave it open. You can attach like a trickle hose from.
I have one attached to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it still fills up?
if you leave it open, as it fills with snow or whatever, when it begins to melt, it'll just run out.
It'll just go right through.
Yeah.
Okay,
Leave your hose open.
okay.
If you also, it's easier to attach a hose if you set it up a little bit, so you might want to set it on some bricks. If it's up on some bricks, it's not so hard to tip it over and empty it. And remember that you're gonna empty it before you turn it over. So you open it up, it'll all drain out.
Mhm.
Once it's empty, it's fairly easy to turn.
Okay.
Put a brick on top so it doesn't fall over in the wind.
Yeah.
Been there, done
I
that.
don't want to run away from a rain barrel. So yeah, they're a really great tool. They make them in all styles, from kind of a fancy looking barrel to a real basic, like old feed barrel almost. I've seen people paint them. I've seen people mosaic on them. I mean, you can really do whatever you want, make it look as pretty and fancy as you want. But they do a great job at harnessing rainwater. There's the slide I was looking for. This is the MGIA slide. So for anyone who didn't get that written down, it's right here. Landscape.org is a great source for all of these things here. And that's my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Want to take questions?
Yeah, any questions? Kind of did questions throughout, but if there are any more questions, yeah, in the back.
I just have to make a comment. My
Yeah.
grandmother used to save rainwater and wash your hair in it.
Yeah.
Wow,
She used
really?
to have the softest hair. I would just climb over and
Aw, that's the sweet memory.
All right, thank you. Thank you to Abby
Thank you
for a
having me.
presentation tonight. I want to remind you that we still have 2 more presentations set up in 2 weeks on May the 8th. There'll be a presentation called Community and Family Gardening. And then following that, on May 22nd, will be a presentation about Southeast Michigan climate. So again, thank you for,
And both of them will be really good. The last one is the person from the National Weather Service, and he's
same time.
same
yes,
time.
yes. All right, thank you, everyone.